My name's Jeff Morgan. I'm with Dad Talk today, and I'm here in Palo, Pinto County with a good friend of mine, Brandon Johnson.
Thank you, Jeff.
So good to see you again. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about what happened inside this courtroom today.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you, Jeff, for coming out. We've been to a lot of hearings together. We've been to a lot of parental rights and family rights functions together, and so I really appreciate you. This is a long way from where you live. But so start again with your question so you can...
Okay, yeah, no, we just left the courtroom here, and I was here, I think it was it like 6 months ago or something, with Judge Michael Moore, and I was very critical about what he did at that time. And I mean, obviously I was very critical, but I saw something completely different today. I think that, you know, from my perspective, this has been the only time that I've ever saw Judge Michael Moore in action. I thought he did a tremendous job, but I want to hear your perspective on what took place today.
Well, yes, I think it's worth just a little bit background.
Absolutely.
Because I want to give Judge Mike Moore, you know, some kudos for today and for showing that he has the ability to be unbiased. We've been critical of him in the past, the way he's handled other cases here in the county, and but today he was extremely fair. And the last time that you and I were here was in October.
So in October, but not long ago already?
Yeah, but they and that's when they took my kids under the you know, the threat of extortion to where I have to go jump through all these hoops in order to be able to have access to my son and daughter again.
And Brandon, by the way, his ex-wife is the mayor of Mineral Wells. We're not going to go about this too much, but her name is Reagan Johnson, and she's actually committing a state jail felony. She's a violation of 2503, which is interference with child custody, and that was the issue that we talked about the last time, because she has been doing this blatantly. I witnessed it in person with you, video recorded it. I saw the police actually be involved with it. I saw the DA do nothing. This was a horrendous thing that happened. So yes, we were very critical at that time. But anyway, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure to insert that part, because yes, I was very critical.
Yeah, and since that time, I really have not been too active on the social media and stuff, just because I have been spending some time, you know, really learning, you know, more of the law, learning more of the private side of the law. Right. And you know, we're going to work our way back into dealing with the custody. Right. But so many men are dealing with this, that you have the Attorney General who is a free attorney for the mother. There was absolutely no reason
for the non-custodial parent, whether it's mother or father.
For the custodial parent.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, for the custodial, yes, exactly.
Yeah, they represent the custodial parent. And I would say, you know, it was shocking to me today with Judge Moore really hammering the Attorney General for being so unprofessional and unprepared. So we've been dealing with this lien that they placed on my wife's property for about 2 years. And we, you know, the way this works, for anybody who's unaware, the Attorney General does not give notice before they lien a bank account or any other type of property. Right, absolutely. And so, which is in violation of the way liens are typically placed. Right. But they do that, and then within about 10 to 14 days, the lien stops you from being able to have access to that property. Within 10 to 14 days, I believe, they can actually, the next step is a levy, and that's where they take it out. And they give you two options. You can either pay the alleged debt, or you can do a contest. Well, we chose to do the contest because it was not my property. This was sole and separate property on her, to my wife. So tell us how that worked, because oftentimes you look at people and they're married and you say, well, it's community property, it's something like that. But you had something in place here that this was not community property. So tell us how that worked. Okay, so for any man who's been through this before, he's very gun shy of ever getting married again. And many of my friends have, you know, if they're not MGTOW, then they're like, hey, I'm never getting married again. I'll date women or whatever, but I'm never getting married again. I was on that train. I met my wife, my current wife, couldn't be happier. She's a wonderful lady. But I said, look, we're fine. I don't mind getting married. However, at the time, I didn't realize all of the intricacies to getting married along with the state of Texas.
Right.
With an official marriage license. However,
Does the state of Texas hop in bed with you?
Yes, they become a third-party interloper to the marriage.
Right.
But what you have to realize is, just from a logical standpoint, a man says, look, time out. I don't mind getting married, but it's going to be on these stipulations. So Jana and I signed a premarital agreement that said, her property, her earnings, that's you, this is me, and then however we deal with the household expenses, and we contract together within our relationship, that's going to be knowing that we each have our separate, and then we're going to come together on certain things.
Right.
And that's private.
Right.
That's how people do, conduct their private lives anyways.
Right.
And that's how we've conducted our life. And this specific account that they put the lien on, this happened to be my wife's account. Now, the technicality that the reason they put this on there, and that many men, if you don't know this, you're beginning to know this, and you need to know this if you don't. The Social Security account is what gives the authority to the Attorney General of the state of Texas, federal government, whoever, to have access to those funds. Now, on that particular account, the way we agreed to set the account up was, and it spells it out, and this is what they were upset about in there. The property within the account belongs in proportion to each person's contributions. Well, because we had this separate marital agreement, none of that belonged to me. Right.
It was all 100% your wife's.
Exactly. But and then it says, yes, we can, either one of us can pull money out. Because we have this premarital agreement that's her property, I could not do that.
Right.
That is standard language from the bank.
Right.
And then it goes further to say that it's a right of survivorship, more or less.
Right.
Okay. And so our agreement was that if something happened to Jana, I would have access to those funds to care for her sons and daughter, son and daughter.
So that was my understanding. Then correct me if I'm wrong on this. The reason your name was on the account at all was to ensure that her children would have the benefit of this money,
without it having to go through all the legal probate,
and the possibility that her ex-husband might take the money and spend it on himself, and the kids get nothing.
And that's a possibility too.
Right.
So yeah, it's just one of those, because even though we have it in a will and that sort of thing, it just cuts the corner. Right. And it's still because we have most people don't realize this, Jeff, and I didn't know this. We have an unlimited ability to contract. It's an infinite ability as long as it's not unlawful. So we cannot contract to do a hit on someone. We can't contract to kill because that's an unlawful contract. It's void. That's what they call a void contract. Because it's against the law. You can't do that. And I'm not saying just strictly legal. I'm saying it's against the law. It's unlawful. Right. Well, that is an inherent right that we have.
The right to contract.
And it's codified in positive law of Article 1, Section 10 of the Federal Constitution, Article 1, Section 16 of the Texas Constitution, that says the state shall not impair the obligation of contracts. And those contracts do not have to be written. Now this one, in this particular case with us, it was written. However, you and I, if we agree that we're going to walk across the street and get a snow cone or an ice cream, and we shake on it, and then we walk across the street, and then I'm supposed to buy, and we get over there, and then I'm looking at you to purchase the ice cream, now I have violated the contract, right? Because the only reason you went over there with me was because you were going to get the ice cream. It's literally that simple. And now the state cannot just come in and interfere.
Right, right. So let me ask you, just an aside real quickly here. Is marriage a contract?
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, that's codified in the statutes, the codes,
So why does the state interfere with that contract?
You know, as a matter of fact, Jeff, I just got finished watching about 2 days ago your testimony down at the Capitol, where you explained to the legislature that they're making a special law interfering with the marriage contract with this no-fault divorce.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
Right.
And so, and that's the most sacred contract.
Right. Right.
And it's forced divorce
on demand.
Yeah, it's unilateral divorce. And so many folks within our movement do not realize the impact and that has on everything else. Because how can you hold anything else to be valid
if you destroy the most sacred of contracts, the most important of contracts, at will, for any reason, for no reason, just by tyrannical decree from a judge acting on behalf of the state.
There is no protection.
No protection.
There is no protection. And that's the whole idea behind Article 1, Section 10 and 16. And these guys who wrote this special law, and I want to look that up because it's imperative. So now, as I've traveled down this road of what we don't realize is we have inadvertently gotten ourselves into these contracts with the state through what's called an adhesion contract, where when we go down and we purchase that marriage license, we are entering into a contract. Most folks think that marriage is a contract between the man, the woman, and God. But the reality is a man, a woman, and the government. When you purchase the marriage license, that is now a contract. However, it's an adhesion contract with a lot of stuff that's implied.
Right. So the question that I have, Brandon, about this adhesion contract, most contracts you have to fully disclose the terms. Both parties have to have a mutual understanding and acceptance. And there's even an Attorney General opinion from the Senator Cornyn when he was the AG, that they asked him about government contracts and are they all valid and everything. And basically there were sometimes, if there was not the meeting of the mind, the government contract is invalid.
That's exactly right. So you have 7 or 8 elements to a contract. Okay, yes, offer, acceptance, consideration, meeting of the minds, and then there's others, but those are the main ones, right? That's the issue. And so we get into a situation of what I'm in the process of doing, which is rescinding my signature for fraud.
Absolutely,
because we have been fraudulently induced into this contract.
With no disclosure on the part of the party.
Full disclosure. That's part of the, that's the thing, it falls under the meeting of the minds. But you can't be doing this.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. And as people are becoming more educated, there's a scripture that says, the people perish for lack of knowledge. And see, these things are no longer taught to us. Right. And so we're having to learn. We're having to learn.
So let's get back inside here to the case, because it was, your wife was up there, they were trying to take her money. And who was trying to take the money from your wife? And on what basis?
The Attorney General, the lady's name is something Bridges.
Bridges, right, yes.
And that's the thing, she just got assigned this case like a week or 2 ago. So she was she knew very little about the case. She testified that that the Attorney General handles thousands of these cases.
So this type of fraud can be committed many times over the course of a year then, but the only reason it didn't happen here was because you challenged it and you had knowledge.
Yes, because we've been studying these things.
Right.
We were somewhat prepared. Now, it still caught us by surprise, but I had already put a challenge into the Attorney General on this particular contract that they allege that we have together. So that was that was one thing she did. The judge really ripped her. I mean, I didn't say a word.
No, you didn't.
Except to thank the judge You know,
It almost looked to me, and this is maybe, like if the judge would not have had to act like a judging professional, like he was ready to come after her like it was a cage fight with a chair. I mean, he was upset that the Office of the Attorney General did such a sloppy job. 2 years for this case. They had the lien on your wife's account for over 2 years, no discovery, no facts were presented. They just wanted to waltz right in there, and here's we are, the Office of the Attorney General, we're going to take this money, and Judge, you're going to listen to us, and the judge did not have anything of it.
Nothing. He didn't have anything.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have anything. Sorry, Jeff.
No, that's okay.
No, he didn't have. They didn't have anything. What was interesting as well is my ex-wife and her attorney were there. I think she was just there for the fees, to say she drove up here. But the judge even chastised her. They had nothing. And you've been to a lot of these court hearings. Mm-hmm. This is the first time I have seen a judge chastise the state to this degree.
Right, and it was interesting because he said something at one point, if I remember correctly. He basically said the burden of proof is on the state.
Yes, he did.
It was not just, we're just alleging this. Where's your proof? You have no proof. You have no facts. And that's what got him upset, is that they had no facts.
Well, and the thing that we had done prior to this is we filed admissions with the Attorney General. We filed discovery with them to say, hey, what do you have? What proof do you have that this property, because it's just like when you talk to the cops.
Right.
Anything you say and do can and will be used against you.
Yeah.
How do we know what it is that they're going to need to satisfy just dropping the whole case?
Absolutely. And yes.
And so they didn't do that. And we filed, hey, what do you need? What do you need? We're asking. And even in their discovery responses that they got almost a year ago, they finally filed answers to about a week ago.
Wow.
And they admitted in there that ownership of the property was a critical issue. That's what they said.
Yeah.
They admitted that.
So I want to ask a different question, because again, I want to make sure that, because we have gone after Judge Moore in the past, that we're saying we are 100% with him on this one. But I also want to ask the question about the actions of the Office of the Attorney General. They have harassed you. They have made your life miserable for 2 years. And from my perspective, there should be some type of compensation for the harassment, for the amount of time that it's cost you, because this stuff does not come free and easy. There is an opportunity cost repeatedly. There is an emotional cost. There is the idea, what happens if one of us ends up going to jail or something like that, or they seize our property again, tyrannically. But I think that somehow we need to start having something in place where when these actions take place, that the victims, and I'm going to say you and your wife were victims, should be compensated by the state for their egregiously illegal actions. What are your thoughts?
What I'm going to say to that is, it's not that I do agree with that. Mm-hmm. However, once again, and I'm gonna lean on being a little too
soft,
philosophical, okay. Maybe. Or now that I have gained more knowledge,
right?
Now that I'm gaining more knowledge, and I'm so thankful to the many groups and the many people who are sharing this knowledge with me.
Right.
Jeff, the reality is, there's a maxim of law, if you will. It's a Roman maxim that says, he who is deceived, let him be deceived. Okay? And what that means is if you're not, and then there's also another one, that if you don't stand upon your rights and you don't assert your rights, you have
no rights.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
but there's also one, that maybe this is a little bit different, and the greatest deceiver of all is the Office of the Attorney General.
For that I would agree.
Okay.
But the reality is, it is up to us.
Right.
See, you know, so many of us don't realize it's up to me to teach the next guy.
Right. Right.
And that's what we are beginning to do. You know, when he sends us out to be disciples of men, you know, when Jesus sent his men out, he says, I'm sending you out among, you know, as sheep among wolves.
Right.
And be as innocent as a dove, as shrewd as a snake, right?
Yeah.
So many folks don't realize how applicable these scriptures are to what we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And so what we have to do is we just have to teach the next guy in line and share our knowledge.
Right.
So that's the only thing that's going to change the system.
Right.
Now, yes, the system the government was instituted, of course, to be a benefit, a security, and a protection to people's rights to life, liberty, and property. Okay? We're taught that. But what we're not taught is that we're no longer living under what would be termed a de jure government that operates like that.
Right.
We're under corporate government, or a de facto government, that is out to profit. And we're the customers. And they're not even shy about it. On the Attorney General's website, it says your customer service is for customers.
Right.
And they offer customer service. So I know we've talked about a lot of things, but so much of what takes place in a courtroom, all the preparation work for both sides and everything that led up to the courtroom is done based on the things that I've discussed with you.
Right. 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 So if anybody is finding themselves in the same situation, a similar situation, what advice would you give them? Are there some people that you would say, go look at these people, or are you going to be putting something together for this as well? I mean, what advice would you give people?
Well, I mean, anybody could reach out to me. I have learned from every person who's been before me, you know, and who has shared their knowledge. So I would say reach out to me. I hate to say, you know, asking you'll receive, seeking you'll find, knocking it'll be open, right? If you're not asking, you're not seeking the knowledge, and you're not knocking on the doors of the people and the groups with that knowledge, you're going to perish because you don't have the knowledge. So you have to start by just undoing all the contracts that you've become involved in. And there's a process to doing that. It would take up some time, but it's a fairly simple process. And then you just have to learn to express and assert your rights, your will, and your own contracts, and rescind and rebut all assumptions and presumptions. So that's where it starts. But that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful, and I realize that. But that's the essence of it.
Okay.
I'm still learning myself, so I'm not necessarily I'm a neophyte to be able to teach this to someone.
Right.
But yes, there are plenty of people out there that have this knowledge and willing to share it.
Well, I just want to say thank you, because you're one of the people that I know. And I mean, I know certain people that are fighting back. And you know what I've said many times, there have been things that we will never be able to undo. But we're trying to make sure that the upcoming generation, our children and our grandchildren, do not have to experience these things. And you've been you've been a good friend for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, and many other people as well. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come out here and to watch again, and to learn from you. And thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, and we'll talk with you later.
Okay.